straight-acting gay guy. That is going to push a few buttons, I think. So I'm not surprised at some of the comments. I've done it myself when I've heard people describe themselves as straight-acting. Come up with some smarty-pants response, like, not much good to me then if you only have sex with women. And I think the reason for this is the implied homophobia in the label straight acting. It's part of what makes people object to don't ask, don't tell, and the like. Put a link up in the sidebar to an article about the Stonewall Employers Awards here in the UK. Brian Paddick explains that when the policy about discrimination on sexual orientation was first implemented in the force, he was warned that it was a shield, not a flag. The implication clearly being that there are acceptable faces of being gay. Basically, if you can pass for straight, then that's okay. So that's what we should be aiming for if we want to be acceptable. And I think that applies to society as a whole. Being gay is tolerable as long as you don't flaunt it, as long as you aren't a big fairy. And pushback against that sentiment is what I think is at the root of some of the reaction you've received. I had a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago who was complaining about the recent gay pride march in Brighton. And his argument was that people turn on the TV and see a freak show. Some hairy guy wearing a pink tutu, blonde wig and 8-inch heels. I said, well, so, if he wants to do that, why shouldn't he? The point of the pride marches, of any equality march or campaign for freedom or equality, is that people should have the right to live their lives in a way that makes them feel happy and fulfilled. Because of the society that we live in, until recently there were no positive gay role models in the public eye. The gay people who appeared on TV were invariably the flamboyantly camp clowns who were just simply a subject of ridicule. Either that, or we were serial killers, or had AIDS. The rest of us were invisible, or expected to conform to something that we weren't, just so that we could be acceptable. On the other side of the coin, it drives me mad when I get PMs or comments from people who say something like, "It's refreshing to meet somebody who is gay and isn't like," and then they mention one of the more flamboyant stereotypes, either here on YouTube or in the media, and they ask me what I think of them. I'm sure it's meant to be a compliment of sorts, but I do feel there's a level of implied homophobia in that kind of statement. If I said to a straight male, "Wow, I never guessed you weren't gay," I'm sure he wouldn't take it as a compliment at all. So it winds me up. And my response is normally along the lines of, really, perhaps we can discuss this in some more detail. And the people around me give each other these sort of sidelong knowing looks, and I think, fuck, she's off. So, Eric, I think that's what you're battling against. I'm sure that when you picked your YouTube handle, you had no intention to offend anyone. But the implied homophobia in your YouTube handle is going to press a few people's buttons. Especially those with a hair trigger, whose favourite pastimes seem to be either finding fault in others, or looking for opportunities to be offended, or manufacturing them when they can't find them. And it's frustrating when we see diversity within the gay population creating this kind of friction, because naively I think we sometimes assume that we're all on the same side. Depfox recently made a video about this. I put a link up in the sidebar to that as well, discussing some of the attacks that they get for wanting a family with children, presumably because we gays don't do that sort of thing. The people who launched these attacks missed the point of what fighting for freedom to be yourself is all about. The people who attack gay people with children as, trying to be like a heterosexual family are missing the point. It isn't about trying to ape the heterosexual nuclear family. It's about the freedom to make real your desire to have a family, your own family. So, Eric, as somebody with more than twice as many miles on the clock, I'm going to break my golden rule and offer you some advice, hopefully not too condescendingly. And it's this. Don't get too upset by this. Instead, try and see what you can take away from the experience. And here's what I see. Number one, Sometimes people can be offended because you say or do something that has implications that either you didn't think about beforehand or has got baggage attached that you didn't know about. It happens. They'll get over it. And if they don't, well, that's their problem. Number 2. Not everybody who is gay is going to be your friend. Gay people can be judgmental wankers or just plain arseholes as well. Number 3. You say that you live in a fair-sized city. Have you investigated whether there's a gay social group, rather than a bar or a nightclub, near you with an interest that you share? Is there a networking group at school? These certainly seem to be more common nowadays than when I was your age. You might not meet Mr. Right, but you'll probably meet some friends. And finally, people whose first reaction is to attack you when you say something they don't like, they aren't worth losing any sleep over. Especially those who are so arrogant that they feel their narrow-minded opinion of what you should look like is important enough for them to share it with the world. We've all seen them in the bars, sitting there in their little covens making bitchy comments and ripping apart everyone and anyone who comes in through the door. And then often moaning about how difficult it is to keep a boyfriend, with no inkling of how the two might somehow be related. They don't fancy you? Well, that's life. Beauty is subjective. And believe it or not, there are people out there who think my chubby old bod is sexy. If the shallow, vain ones don't find me attractive and don't want to be with me, I say, bullet dodged. And don't take the reactions of the super-sensitive fanatics on board too seriously either. I've put a link up in the sideboard from the documentary series Little Britain to illustrate this point. It's less than 2 minutes long, so I think it's worth a look. And that's it. Good luck. Just be happy to be who you are, and if other people don't like it, fuck them.